me see if I can untie this. I don't know why I like wrap. Well, I do know why I wrap things this way. It's because tangled wires drive me insane. Anyway. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel and thank you so much for watching. For those of you who are new here, my name is Andrea. I'm a New York State licensed acupuncturist and I would love to teach you all about Chinese medicine. Today's video is part 2 in what was supposed to be just a one-part video, but I just get very excited when I'm talking about Chinese medicine, and so here we are. Anyway, part 1 we discussed the acupuncture tools of our trade, and we included acupuncture needles, moxibustion, and we talked a little bit about ear seeds as well. In part 2 we're going to go over cupping, Gua Sha, liniments, and electrical stimulation. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, let's get right to it. Alright, so now we're going to talk about cups. So there's 2 ways that you can do cupping. One way is fire cupping, and the other is by actually using like a suction cup. So what I have here, these are for fire cupping. You can see they're just plain glass cups. And then this is actually for facial cupping. This one, for example, what you would do is you squeeze it, you place it wherever you're doing your cupping, which I don't know if I can really show you, maybe like that. And then when you let go, yeah, you can see it creates that suction. Yeah, and then to release it, I just squeeze again and voila, that's it. So these are pretty easy to use. There's also, and again, I don't have it with me, so I'll have to just put a picture up. There's cupping that you can do too, where there's actually like a hand pump, and so there's like a little piece that's kind of like attached to the top of the cup, and so you would place this on the skin, and then you would put the pump on top, pump it up until you get the proper amount of suction or whatever is comfortable for the patient. And then when you remove the pump, that maintains it. I like to use fire cups, one because it's flashy and it's fun to do, but there's also a nice like aspect of bringing in that yang energy of fire into the body when you're working with cupping. To do this, you actually grab a pair of these. I would rub the inside with a little bit of alcohol, and then you would have either an alcohol pad or a cotton ball that's like soaked with alcohol, and you just clamp that in there, you light it on fire, and then give this a good swirl and quickly place it to the skin. And then that, because the fire basically gets rid of all of the oxygen in there, when you place it down to the skin, it creates suction. It's not as like exact as if I were to use that pump or if I were to use something like this, where I can very easily control how much suction is kind of happening there. I'm sorry, that looked really weird. I'm sorry if that freaked anybody out. So yeah, this, what you do is you kind of, I don't know, you just go for it and place it down, and if it's too much, you'll actually just press very gently on the skin to release some of the air and then allow it to attach right back to the skin. That's it for cupping. Let me know if you guys would be interested in actually like watching a cupping treatment, because like I said, fire cupping is like pretty fun and flashy, so let me know if you'd be interested in that. Alright, so next up on our list are Gua Sha tools, and yes, these are these are jar lids. So traditionally you would actually use soup spoons to do Gua Sha, but obviously over the years we've evolved and come up with like some many different shapes. So like for example, this Gua Sha tool is actually used for facial Gua Sha. You've probably seen these in your local drugstore or like TJ Maxx kind of a store. But yeah, these are actual acupuncture tools. If you are interested in doing some facial Gua Sha, don't, oh my gosh, please don't just like watch any makeup guru or beauty guru on like how to do it, because there is actual technique that goes to this, and there's certain places where you can do Gua Sha and certain places where you can't. So speaking of, let me know if you would like for me to do a video on Gua Sha as well. I can teach you guys how to do proper facial Gua Sha, and also what the tools are made of do have different properties. So for example, jade is very cooling, so it's a really nice tool to use for inflammation. That's why jade is actually really powerful, or a very popular tool to use for facial Gua Sha, because we definitely get a lot of redness. You can get if you have acne, rosacea, all of those things are inflammatory conditions, and so jade is really good for helping to combat that. But for everyday Gua Sha, I actually will use the lid, because these are cheap and they're disposable. So unlike a cup where once I'm done using it, I have to wash it, I have to disinfect it. This I use it on one patient and then I can toss it away because it's cheap and it doesn't matter. But what's important is you can't just use any jar lid, obviously, but this, if it'll focus, There we go. Yeah. Okay. So you can see that the lid here, like the lip of the jar rather, is actually very rounded. That's really what's important when we're doing gua sha. Obviously, you don't want something that's like sharp or pointed to be on top of the skin. Well, that doesn't make sense because needles are sharp and pointed. But when you're doing gua sha, perhaps if I explain the technique, it'll make more sense. When you do gua sha, actually I can demonstrate this with one of the smaller ones. What you're doing is you hold the lid and then you're actually scraping it along the skin. So you can imagine if something is rather like sharp, to do that is literally, it's just going to scratch your skin and it can do damage and it's uncomfortable. So to have like this nice rounded lip, which you will also see, and especially on this one, is on a lot of these different gua sha tools, makes that like gliding sort of more comfortable. And like I was saying before, like different shapes will kind of accomplish different things. So this being for facial acupuncture, you know, this curve here is nice to kind of go along your cheeks. You can use this to kind of get along bone. So like if this were like your chin bone, for example, get a nice little massage in there. And I'll put up a couple pictures of some different types of gua sha tools that I'm sure you've seen. You may see your chiropractor use it. There is a technique that the name is escaping me, so I will have to look it up and I will write it somewhere. But yeah, it's gua sha. It's just a different kind of version of it. But yeah, that's it. Pretty simple. So another common tool that you'll see in your acupuncturist's office are liniments. Again, we're not limited to only these. These are the ones that I was taught to use while I was in school. There are many different versions of these. These are just the brands that I know and I'm used to, so they're the ones that I tend towards. And these bad boys in the back are a home brew, which I will talk about in a moment. So this is called red flower oil, and this has really nice warming properties to it. So I tend to use this. I think I use this one actually the most frequently, especially after I've done a session of something like trigger points. It can leave the muscles feeling pretty sore, and this is really great to just warm everything up, get the blood flowing, get that lactic acid moving out of the area. And now, yeah, the heat aspect to it is to relax the muscle. So if there's any like, you know, sort of residual tension or if any stiffness in there after I'm done working, you know, this is a really great way to work with it. Next, over here, I have, this is white flower oil. So this will do the opposite. This has a nice cooling effect. So if somebody's coming in and I'm treating arthritis in their knees, for example, sprains, strains, stuff like that, you know, this will be a nice thing to use because, you know, this will help with any inflammation that's in the area. Within Chinese medicine in general, we tend to shy away from ice. The main reason why is because things that are cold tend to cause stagnation, and stagnation is ultimately what causes pain. So whatever you're using that's cooling, you want to make sure there's other elements in there that'll help to keep the blood and the qi moving. And so that's why we reach for something like this. And actually, one of these formulas does it as well. But again, I'll get to that in a moment. I have not made a video ranting about how much I dislike ice, but I have a whole blog about it. So I'll link that down below. Also, side note, this is really good for mosquito bites. So white flower oil, great in the summer for mosquito bites. This is woodlock oil. So this is kind of neutral. It's not really hot. It's not really cold. So it's not going to have any of that specific effect. But it does get all like nice and tingly and relaxing and help to, again, just speed up blood flow through the area, you know, get that lactic acid flushed out, you know, and any other kind of junk that doesn't need to be in there. So if I have somebody who's, you know, particularly sensitive to, you know, the heat or to the cold, this is a nice thing to use in the middle. Also, for example, if it's in the middle of summer and it's, you know, 90 degrees outside, and I know that using the red flower oil would be really helpful, but because it's so hot, I don't want to use something that's got so much heat in it. That's when I will use this. You know, the same thing goes for, you know, the cold. If we're having a particularly cold day and somebody's coming in for inflammation, I don't necessarily want to put more cold stuff on their skin because it's uncomfortable, and that can also bring, you know, cold into the body in a different way, and that's not good. So I will use the, you know, the woodlock oil instead. Now these bad boys, let me move this stuff out of the way. These bad boys are what we call HIIT formulas. So in most martial arts studios will have their own version of these. So this is called a trauma liniment, which is also known as Dijiao. So that is actually a cooling formula. So if you twist your ankle, if you pull a muscle, if you sprain something, this is the first thing that you're going to put on. And this has, again, nice cooling properties. It helps to speed up blood flow through the area so that all of the junk that kind of builds up from it getting inflamed flush out of the area. And with that flushing, you can bring in new blood, which has all the stuff that you need to heal. that's what this one does. And then once you move into later stages of injury, we use this, it's called a bee lotion. So this is actually warming. So this one has a cooling, again, anti-inflammatory properties, and this one is more warming. So again, this is really going to focus on getting blood flow through the area and making sure that no stagnation as a result of your injury. I also wanted to take a moment to mention the book where I get my liniment formulas from, and that's A Tooth from the Tiger's Mouth by Tom Biggio. It may not look like it, but I use this book all the time for acute injury care. It covers basic theories and principles of Chinese sports medicine, injury prevention, formulas. There's different exercises in there, and even has treatments for common conditions such as sprained ankles. If anybody has even the faintest interest in learning about Chinese sports medicine, I highly recommend you pick up this book. I'll include a link down below if you're interested. I also use arnica gel. This is just nice. Generally, I use this if I bruise somebody by accident. I mean, you're working with needles, it does happen. And this just kind of helps speed up the healing process. So this is also, I mean, you can find this in your local pharmacy. But again, it's really more for minor injuries. I will say, if you're looking for something to relieve, muscle pain and tightness and stuff like that, I would definitely reach more for these liniments or something, if you can't find these liniments, using something like Tiger Balm or Icy Hot or Bengay, whatever formula you feel works best for you. But for bruising and stuff, this is a pretty cool formula. This is really, really helpful. All right, and last but not least on the list of things you will probably most frequently see in your acupuncturist's office is electrical stimulation. So you'll also find this in physical therapist's office. A lot of chiropractors use it. It's such a wonderful tool, especially, when working with pain management. But if you've ever had physical therapy, you've likely had electrical stimulation before, just in a different way. So here is the device. This plugs into here, and then I can control how intense, I don't have the batteries in it right now, how intense that is. I can change the frequency, so how frequently you're feeling those pulses. And then for physical therapy, you would see these would lead to kind of like these big pads, and you would place the pads on, different muscles, and then they would, again, just fire that electricity in there to kind of help relax the muscles and numb pain. But what we do with these is we actually hook these up directly to the needle. So to take one of the needles that I was using before. And this is what's really helpful about having needles that have a metal head. So for example, Sarah needles have a plastic handle, which makes it more comfortable for the practitioner to needle. But the metal head makes it really great for doing electrical stimulation, because once the needle is in the point, this just hooks right up to it. I can just clamp it around. And then from here, if I'm working with trigger points, which is generally when I'll use electrical stimulation, what this will do is while it's in the muscle, it kind of just keeps activating the muscle, and you'll feel this like tapping. And basically what it's doing is kind of the work that I would be doing with my dry needling. So I'm finding where there's knots, and then once I get the needle in there, I kind of poke around, and that forces the muscle to jump. So if somebody is like the muscle just keeps jumping, or if it's not quite releasing, I would use the electrical stimulation, so that this is basically just keeps doing that work and keeps forcing that muscle to release until you finally feel that relief. But yeah, that is basically electrical stimulation. So there you have it, an overview of the tools that you are most likely to come into contact with during your acupuncture treatments. These tools can be combined with one another or used individually to create a complete and custom treatment just for you. So if you are afraid of needles, know that you have some options. Though I hope just seeing how small the needles are did help to ease some of your anxiety. A complete treatment can be done with just moxa alone or with just Gua Sha alone, and every licensed acupuncturist is trained in all of these techniques, so all you have to do is ask. But please keep in mind that the reason why we have these different tools is because they serve different purposes. Not every tool can be used for every condition, and there's going to be times when, even though you are afraid of needles, a needle may be what's necessary in order to treat what it is that you are coming in with. In the event that this happens, please trust your practitioner and feel free to communicate with them. The more information that you can give us about what you're feeling, if something is painful, if something is uncomfortable, the easier it's going to be for us to adjust. And that way we can give you a treatment that is comfortable, but you're still getting all of the benefits of acupuncture. I hope that learning about these tools has given you a better understanding of how acupuncture works and what you can expect during your treatment. As I mentioned earlier, I think I mentioned it a couple times actually, there are many other tools that we can use. So if you are interested in learning more about that, just leave a comment below. I'd be happy to make another video on it. As always, I hope this has opened your mind to a new way of thinking, and until the next time I see you, be well.